Hello, welcome. My name is Amber and this is my channel, A Foxglove's Handiwork. Here we do all sorts of crafting, handiwork, and repurposing. So that's stuff you're interested, stay tuned. Today is the first video of a two-part series I'm doing on reutilizing your Christmas tree. The project I'm highlighting in today's video is making a quilted pouch filled with the pine needles. So as those pine needles dry, the oils from the sap within it, when they're crunched, broken, they release that beautiful Christmassy smell. I want to add another flair to this project and quilt the front. I picked up this quilting source book while thrifting. I have dabbled in quilting, but I'm excited to get more serious. This quilting book has all sorts of quilting things, techniques, the tools and equipment, cutting, 4Bs, I'll learn those. And I didn't quite realize that this part is actually the quilting. I always thought this part was the quilting, but that's just the top. I want to do the log cabin pattern. I have thrifted several items with this, and I just think it is so quaint, and the thin strips allow you to kind of reuse fabrics. And so this is the pattern that I'm going to try. So a lot of this fabric I have either thrifted or it's leftover from a sewing project. And some of it I don't have very much. These were actually some pajamas.
Garments that I reused, I needed to cut into smaller sections. So here's an old t-shirt that I used. Ironing is important to get the fabric very flat. And you want to iron the wrong side. This piece here, you can see I flipped it over. So it's the unprinted, it's the duller side. It is so satisfying to iron, seeing those wrinkly fabric become this pristine, flat, crisp.
I'm going to use this red fabric for the center. The book, where's the book? The book says traditionally the center is red, representing like the hearth of the log home. The middle is a square, right? And so whatever measurement you choose that square to be. Where art thou? Here we go. Right, so wherever that middle is, I'm going to make it red. And then here is the diagram that I am using on how to construct a log cabin block. The next phase is laying out different fabrics, kind of thinking about how I want to build the construction of my log cabin.
The final measurement of the inner square is going to be 1 inch by inch. So the cut measurement gives a 1/4 inch surrounding it. So it is 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches. So the first two squares are measured 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches. But together they'll be 2 inches. So the next piece is 2.5 inches to allow that quarter seam on either side. So as I lay it out, it looks like the surrounding pieces will be too short. However, as the pieces are sewn together and should, cross your fingers, line up perfectly. For sewing, I put the two inner squares together and giving that 1/4 inch seam allowance, I sew along. I add the second piece, which is the 2.5 inches, which now lines up perfectly. And once again, giving a 1/4 inch allowance, sew straight. So here is the middle part of mine, and the example of already made a mistake, but that's okay. Just that my spiral will kind of go opposite of their model. So my next piece is a 2-inch one. So it would have been here. So it's at the like L. So it'll go there. Here is the log cabin quilt square, my first one ever. I'm really happy with how simple it was and how easy, or how quickly it came together. I did do some test sewing before I filmed just to make sure I was prepared, but here is my first log cabin. And this is how large I was thinking of making the pillow. So this is as far as we're gonna go. I do wanna put a backing. So the next step is going to put a backing just to secure our beautiful design. The green piece will be the backing to the quilted block, and this red fabric will be the back of the pillow. And so I'm actually lining it up, it looks like on top. So when I sew it and inside it out, the red will be on the back side. I decided to pin down the block onto the red fabric before cutting it out. I noticed the edge here on the left was not quite straight, so I lined up the block to the one edge that I knew was straight, pinned it, and then cut it. Or I guess sewed it and then cut it.
So I remembered just in time to leave a little bit of a gap so I can inside out the pouch. So glad I remembered. just in the nick of time. So I'm gonna cut the excess red off and flip it inside out.
The hole ended up being too small, so I snipped some of the stitches to widen the hole so that I was able to reverse the pouch. Scissors, probably not the best tool to help get the corners, but it's the closest thing I had on hand, so sometimes you do with what you got. It is so adorable. I'm so happy with how it turned out. Next, we need to make the liner for the pine needles to go into, so a separate little pouch, and I decided to use the same green fabric. The way that fabric is woven, by making a little snip, you can actually rip it, and it generally makes a straight line. It's also a very satisfying sound. I did decide to cut the seam open as I will need a much larger hole in order to insert the pine needle pouch. So, lesson learned. Now I know for the next one. For making the corner, I left it so the needle was still in the fabric, lifted the foot, and gently rotated the fabric 90 degrees. The needle was kind of the anchor as the twisting around, and it makes a nice, clean corner.
I wasn't sure if I should inside the inside pouch out, but I've decided for a nice clean look, I am going to inside this out. I have my bowl of collected pine needles. Roll the film of me collecting the pine needles. Go. The first thing that we need to do is collect the pine needles. This tree, it was not a balsam, which is the ideal pine tree for this project. They just had this lovely pine smell. This was, I don't remember what kind of tree it was. I cracked the needles, and so those oils are released, and it smells good. One way that I know that they're not balsam is that, see how it, when you look at it straight on, it kind of makes a circular shape around the needles as they poke out, kind of like a bottle brush. A balsam would be flat, so the needles would be going flat onto either side. I have a bucket with me and some shears. I'm going to cut off branches and then strip the needles into the bucket. I did forget to mention, this red fabric is actually a sheet that I got at Goodwill, and it's this beautiful red kind of jewel tone, and this was what was under our tree. I pulled it out, and so keeping my messiness as much as I can on the sheet for an easier cleanup. it helps to go against the way that the needles grew. So this is the way that the pine needles grew. So they're kind of facing this way towards me. And by stripping, the ends are really delicate, but by stripping, going against it, I'm finding that they drop a lot easier. And sometimes I just pick in. This is the first time I've ever done this, so we're giving it a try. I'm discovering that some little thin work gloves probably would have been good. And I'm at the point now of just like rubbing the pine needles. It's faster. First I was kind of like making sure I was getting them all, and I was like, you know what? I'd like to make quite a few of these. So we kind of get more bang for our buck here. Now that I'm starting to collect more pine needles in here, some of the branches, the ends are still intact, a little more delicate. And I found by just rubbing the little branch pieces together in my hands, it's helping to separate the pine needles and give it a little shake. Those bigger pieces are gonna rise to the top while the pine needles sink to the bottom. So I've done a few branches here. I'm getting quite a bit, but I'm gonna keep going. And we're back. Bowl of pine needles. Some good ASMR there for you. They smell so good. I have no technique as to how to get the needles into the pouch, satchel. Comment down below what you would call this. Is this a satchel? Is it a sachet? Is it a pouch? Is it a little pillow? What word would you use to describe this? Because I am finding all of them kind of work, but it might be good to stick with one. Okay, long way to go still. A funnel of some sort would be good. And I didn't completely do it. I thought having a little bit of a smaller opening might help, but maybe it's hindering me. I do not know. But this whole bowl of pine needles is filling up this pouch, satchel, sachet. I was going to fill it halfway and put it in here. Let's see if it fits. Because if it's too fat, then it won't fit. Trying to do this without getting pine needles everywhere. My inner pouch was probably just well, seems a little small. Yep, probably could have made that bigger. But I can also fill a lot more pine cones in here. My Christmas tree is currently outside. And it's cold out and dark. And I don't feel like going outside. So, for this first one, the satchel will not be quite as firm and round like some of these pine pocket satchel things are. But I think it'll still do the trick. I can still slip it in with some sweaters or linen. I do plan on making some more. So this one will be a little looser one. The next trick is sewing it all up. The inner liner does not need to be pretty. I'm just gonna sew it shut. to close up the last seam here, since I do want it to be pretty, I am going to hand stitch this shut.
I began with a invisible stitch, so you're kind of stitching in between underneath the kind of seam of the fabric. However, this proved to be kind of a challenge, so I ended up just doing a very small, just typical stitch. Here it is in all its glory. It is delightful.
Our satchel pillow friend has turned out wonderfully. I have gone ahead and started some other fronts for some more satchels or sachets. Again, let me know in the comments what you think this is called. This is so much fun. I am seeing myself getting into quilting. The table is a mess, but it's very satisfying and a great way to use all that fabric that I have been softly hoarding. And what a delightful project to make. Smells of Christmas continues here. I'm excited to tuck this in with some sheets or my sweaters as I pack up winter clothes for the next year, and just help keep things fresh and reusing a bit of my Christmas tree. So if you enjoy these types of crafty DIY projects, please be sure to hit the subscribe button as I post all sorts of different types of crafting and DIYing and thrifting. I think you just never know what you might get. Don't forget to like. This is part 1 of my DIY reuse your Christmas tree project. So if you were intrigued by this, be sure to check out next week's video. It's quite different, but still using the tree, reusing it. Again, my name is Amber. This is a Foxgloves Handiwork. I have an Instagram, a.fox.gloves.handiwork. Check me out there for more. And until next time, thank you. Bye.